this is the most misunderstood reason for why many are coming out of childhood with an insecure attachment or attachment pain, is because they are not getting the movement, the neurodevelopment piece that they need. So the role of neurodevelopment is much more than what we have thought. Movement helps us regulate. Movement helps us regulate. As infants, as babies, we are moving in order to regulate ourselves. The first thing that we move is we are moving away from pain. I'm Dr. Aimie, your guide for transforming your trauma into your gift. You adapted to life experiences to survive, but you are not your trauma. If you experienced a large degree of regulation, guess what your system is? Open and connecting. If you experienced a large degree of dysregulation, guess what your system had to do? It had to adapt. It had to adapt because we cannot tolerate dysregulation at that early of life. And so we adapt by either holding on too tight or letting go. Now, what's really fascinating is that while we can look at these two primary adaptations and survival styles, we can actually bring a lot of color and flavor to it, if you want to call it that. And we can actually start to pinpoint at what age you would have experienced enough dysregulation to cause a survival style and adaptation. So that we're able to say, like, it wasn't just, oh, in your early life, but we're actually able to fairly well pinpoint it to, this would have been in the first 6 months of your life. This would have been in 6 to 12 months of life. And how can we do that? That is where we can bring in the neurodevelopment. And if you remember that the reason for going from the stress response to the trauma response, and in fact, maybe let me bring that up for us to remind ourselves of the trauma response. So in the trauma response, we would have first been in the sympathetic stress response. And guess what would have happened here? We would have had our ability to act, to move, to take action blocked, inhibited. Because as long as we're able to still take action, we stay in the stress response. When our body runs out of resources, when our body runs out of energy, when our body runs out of nutrients, when our body says, I'm not strong enough for this big of a threat, and we go to that place of, the best thing is for me to give in, give up. Or our physical movement is actually blocked, or we've developed a learned helplessness pattern and we actually block our own movement. Whatever is the block of movement, of being able to take action, that's when our system goes into the freeze response. And this is the most misunderstood reason for why many are coming out of childhood with an insecure attachment or attachment pain, is because they are not getting the movement, the neurodevelopment piece that they need. So the role of neurodevelopment is much more than what we have thought. Movement helps us regulate. Movement helps us regulate. As infants, as babies, we are moving in order to regulate ourselves. The first thing that we move is we are moving away from pain. Usually it's the pain of a wet diaper. So we're scooting forward on our bellies. We can't crawl yet. We're still too small and too young and too weak, too disorganized in our movements. We haven't learned how to move yet. And yet that's the first actual movement that we take, is moving away from pain. Why? Well, because pain is dysregulating. Pain is uncomfortable. And if for whatever reason there was enough going on in your early life experiences where that movement was inhibited, was decreased, that would have also been a reason for a learned helplessness pattern to start forming in your belief system of everything, any stress, anything uncomfortable is too much for me and I can't tolerate it. And I go into overwhelm with even things that are uncomfortable. After that stage, when we're still only on our tummy, we can't get up to our hands and knees yet, they don't work well yet, we actually move to connect. So we first move to regulate, but then once we figure out that we can move, we're like, whoa, this is cool. I didn't know that I could do this. And now let me move towards something that I want. Not just away from something uncomfortable, but let me move towards something that I want. This right here is the first 6 months of life. We are learning all of this stuff through movement. We move to learn. We actually don't learn to move. We move in order to learn how to regulate ourselves, how to take action with things that are uncomfortable and not just stay in the uncomfortable and then have to dissociate to some degree in order to shut off those sensations. We move to connect. We move to reach out for what we want in life. And so if this movement or if the relationship at this stage was blocked in any way, guess what? We see those patterns for the rest of our life. We actually are not able to move powerfully towards things that we want in life. In fact, not only that, but we have different belief systems about ourselves. Belief systems around, I don't have the right to exist. I'm unlovable. And it's not just, I'm not just saying that, like, I inherently know that I am not loved, and it's because I'm just unlovable. Everybody knows that. The type of anxiety that comes out of attachment pain happening at this age, which means dysregulation happening at this age, the type of anxiety is this anxiety around, do I have a right to exist? Do I have a right to be here? Do I have a purpose? And so when we have gaps at this age, these sensations, these felt body sensations are ones of, I feel like I'm a burden. I feel like I don't belong. And so guess what we do in order to survive those feelings? What do you think are the survival patterns that come out of feeling that type of anxiety? Feeling like I don't belong, feeling that I'm a burden to others. What's the survival patterns that can arise? A lot of dissociation. So at this level, in this 0 to 6 months of life, these people have the strongest pull towards the freeze response, because that was their primary means of surviving their dysregulation. They isolate, exactly, Deb. They isolate. I can only depend on myself. I only want to depend on myself. They become quiet. These are the ones that let go of the rope. Right? Everything is just, no, I know that once you know me, that you're gonna drop the rope, so I'm gonna drop the rope first. This is just too much. They withdraw. And it's very interesting that not all of them, definitely not all of them, but some of the survival patterns can be, I pride myself in not feeling my emotions. I take pride in the fact that I'm so intellectual, that I can analyze everything and base my decisions on logic. I am not emotional. And for them, some of the somatic work obviously can be very uncomfortable, right? Because any sensations were too much for them back then. And so it's already wired into their brain. It's too much for me. Their brain didn't get the update that you've grown up and that you could actually handle uncomfortable things now. It doesn't know that. There is a part of you that is still like stuck at that age, 0 to 6 months of life.